Welcome back. In recent days, the Irish Life Dublin City Marathon have announced they're introducing a new category for non-binary runners, in addition to male and female runners, for the race this October. The organisers said that they hope that this decision will, and I quote, make a positive impact and will allow for runners to participate in a category that matches their identity. And in terms of understanding non-binary people, some people feel that they don't fit into the category of male or female. So, for example, some feel that their identity incorporates elements of both being a man or a woman, or that their identity is neither male or female, and some people's gender changes over time. So non-binary is the most common term used, to describe these various identities. Other terms include gender queer, gender and bigender. So this announcement has raised a number of eyebrows. The announcement follows consultations with members of the running community, particularly with the LGBTQ plus club Dublin frontrunners, and it means that for the first time ever there will be a non-binary category at the Dublin City Marathon. Agree or disagree? Well, let's discuss. I'm joined on the programme this morning by Sorcha Ní from an organisation called Countess Advocacy Company. Thanks for being with us, Sorcha. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Very well. First of all, tell me, Countess Advocacy Company, what is it?
Oh, yeah, so we are an organisation founded in about 2020, came together kind of secretly online and then expanded a little bit. So we identified some concerns around self-identification. And what that means is that at the law stands in Ireland, anyone can go and get a form that essentially says that they are the opposite sex. And we have obviously a number of concerns with this, and we know that they're shared by the majority of people, because what it means is a man can say, I'm a woman, and then be treated as such in terms of prisons, sport, and other areas where sex is very important. So our organisation is campaigning against this, and my role is in the sports working group. So we look at how fairness and safety for women and girls in sport is undermined by gender ideology and by the inclusion of males into females categories, and in this case that we're talking about now, the non-binary category being introduced.
Okay, but do you respect that an individual has the right to declare as being non-binary?
Oh, sure, like anyone can declare anything, but the thing is that it's particularly with non-binary, it's not definable in any physical sense. So there's no physical category that person fits into. For example, in a race where you have male, female, you have divisions on age, you have divisions on disability, then now they've introduced a category which essentially doesn't have a defining feature other than what that person feels internally or identifies as. And so you can see that when that happens, you have males and female bodies running in a race together. And then that will obviously lead to the males winning, because that's how sport works. So our concern around this is that it erases essentially a sex category. It will lead to the erasure of a sex category in sport, and that's there for a very good reason. Males run on average 10% faster than females. It's proven that is a difference that exists and isn't really modifiable. So that's why we are opposed to the introduction of this category. And in general, we are part of a group that campaigns to protect female sport internationally as well as within Ireland. We have campaigns running around the LGFA policy that came out recently. We also have template letters against the golf policy, and we signed a letter recently to the International Cycling Organisation, because so many cycle races now are being dominated by males. So yeah, I hope that explains it a little bit
it does,
for you.
But I do know that like New York, Chicago, Boston, London, I think they all now are including non-binary categories in their marathons. I know that in your press statement you made reference to the fact that you had been in touch with the Dublin City Marathon organisers, and that their director, Jim Ockney, is that the director of the Dublin City Marathon? But what's he saying?
So Jim Ockley said that essentially, he was introducing the category. His statement, that's a matter of public record, so that was in the paper. He said that they have an expected finishing time around 3 hours of 15, so there could be 179 people per minute crossing the line at that particular time. And so our question is, so why is this non-binary finisher more worthy of the prize than the other 178 who are finishing with exactly the same time? And essentially what you're introducing is an award for males, because they're the ones who will be winning the non-binary category, males who are down the mid-range of the pack. It's kind of a bit ludicrous to be saying that it's based on identity when it's in fact somebody's body who's running this race. Sport shouldn't be based on an identity, it should be based on science. Every other category has a definition, but this one doesn't. So we kind of confused as to why they would introduce a category like this. I see you mentioned the other marathons that have introduced this, so they're major marathons, but those categories were all won by males last year, and in fact in an article by Mara Yamuchi, herself is a marathon runner, she said that in Boston last year, based on publicly available information, the top five, the lead was male, then the next was a female who openly states she takes testosterone, which is essentially doping, and then the next five were male, and the top half of 24 were male. So I mean, it's a category just for what? Like, and we don't really understand why you would need a category like this in a race.
So just to clarify for listeners, so if somebody today, a male or has a male body, can decide to enter the non-binary category, and you believe, so I mean, what's this? Well, I mean, I'm trying to discern here between the male and the female race, which has always been traditionally the Dublin City Marathon. But if they're introducing a category exclusively for non-binary, then surely there's still going to be a male winner, a female winner, and then a non-binary winner.
Yes, there will, but what sex do you think the non-binary winner will be?
Most likely
based
male. Most likely male.
So you're essentially, you've now got two male categories, one for males who are competitive and can actually, run at the highest level, and one for males who maybe aren't as competitive. So they're being awarded for being mediocre, really. It's not a competitive category. They'll be racing against other. Well, they can race against anyone. It's a self-identification as well, because what they've said is they'll be opening the portal for people to go in, and they can change their gender, they say. So they can go in and tick a box that says male, female, or non-binary. I mean, there's nothing to stop anyone from ticking that box. All the males who enter could enter the non-binary if they thought they had a chance of winning it. And then he's also saying that they're introducing prize money for this. So that's drawing away from the resources that are allocated, presumably that could be allocated elsewhere. They're also saying that they're lamenting the fact that there's not enough female participation, but yet they've now made it more unfair for females.
Has the horse bolted on this? I mean, the decision is made. Are you asking for the Dublin City Marathon organisers to rethink this?
Yes, ideally they rethink it. I would definitely think they should withdraw prize money for it. But we would oppose the introduction of these kind of categories anywhere. So yes, we would like them to reconsider. When he's saying that it was a club that lobbied. The club that lobbied is an LGBTQ athletic club called Frontrunners. They run in Dublin. They don't have any junior members, so they don't do any of the coaching. They don't do any of the standing on the sidelines on a Saturday morning, driving the kids around the place, volunteering, anything like that. But yet they have the influence to essentially change the categorization in a major race. We have major questions about that. We don't feel like this is a change that should be introduced without consulting with athletics clubs and coaches up and down the country. It's not fair on the volunteers.
Yeah, I
who
suppose
generally don't really agree with this kind of stuff, to be honest.
I suppose, Sorcha, it's not always politically correct to come out and be critical of people who are non-binary, and, straight away people are saying, everybody has to be respected, and we appreciate that. But I do notice the texts that are coming in here, and by the way, majority, by a long shot, believe that this is a mad decision, but that's probably to be expected because it's a change. But what about people who are saying, look, we have to respect these people, and it really, the argument that you're making is all about winning. That this is, the Dublin City Marathon. Of course, there's always winners, and people like to have their times clocked. But at the end of the day, it's also about participation.
Well, sport is a competition. Whether you come first or last, you're grading yourself against somebody else, right? That's what sport is. It's not a park run here. Like, we're not talking about people competing against themselves. We're talking about people competing against other people. And so you're introducing a category that allows people based on no physical characteristics. So you're not talking about this is somebody who's in a wheelchair, or who has a visual disability, or something that's measurable, or is over 70 years old, over 60 years old, whatever. You're talking about somebody who's essentially saying, I feel like this inside, I don't fit the category, so I need a special category. And what we're saying is that's fine in your everyday life if that's how you want to present it. Everyone has a right to a life where they're not discriminated against. But in some areas, your sex is the key part that needs to be considered, and in our opinion, and in the opinion of most people, most reasonable people, it's that sport is a very is one of those areas where your sex is the key point and your identity really is irrelevant, and so it should be. You've sports clubs up and down the country welcoming in members who identify as all sorts of things, and from once they play in the correct sex, they should not be discriminated against. Okay. Whether they're whatever, it doesn't matter. But your sex matters in this and in other areas as well in life.
Okay. And let me go through some of the comments. Totally agree with your views of Sorcha there. She makes perfect sense. Somebody needs to shout halt once and for all. That's Cassie. This texter says the Dublin City Marathon decision is sheer madness. Sean says, does Ireland always have to keep copying every other country? Just leave it male and female, as that's the way we were born. Andrea, she says the non-binary category is mixed sex. Another caller says male and female are not identities. They are the two sexes, whether people like it or not. People who say they are non-binary are either male or female, and that's the end of it, she says. And this texter says, in fairness, this is going far too far. Women's sport has been destroyed by this type of nonsense. 180 different genders. It's pure madness, and it's messing up young people's heads with all of this going on. More a case of mental issues than anything else. If there's anybody out there who declares themselves as non-binary in our area and who wants to come on and explain to us, who maybe find it hard to get it into our heads, what exactly is in your head, then by all means get in touch with us. I would love to hear from you. More of them. There's loads in here. Sorcha from the Countess is correct. Sex matters in sport and other areas of life like single-sex spaces, toilets, rape centres, change rooms. And this texter, well done to Sorcha. This gender nonsense has gone on far too long. When will other strong women in this country stand up for themselves and say enough is enough? So there isn't a whole pile of sympathy. It's not that people don't have are willing to acknowledge that a person is non-binary. It's just that in the context of sport, it's a completely different platform, and it's an unfair platform at that, which is the argument you're making, Sorcha.
Yes, we would see it as very unfair, and we are very concerned as well that this kind of introducing a category like this might lead to the erasure of the sex categories altogether. We've seen that in other sports, particularly cycling, where males can self-identify into the female category and essentially destroy the sport. It leads to women and girls leaving sport early. It leads to loss of career, loss of opportunity, loss of confidence, and we strongly oppose that kind of erasure of of women of the sex categories, and particularly of the category of female in sport.
Okay.
So yeah, we would agree with most of the posters there.
Fiona, she says Sorcha very measured and calm in the information, 100% correct. Essential that it is now, essentially there are now 2 categories for men to win. If they withdrew the prize money for the non-binary men category, how many men would enter then? That would be interesting. And another caller says Sorcha is very measured. Sorry, I've done that one. This one says, well done to Sorcha. This gender nonsense has gone up far enough. When will other strong women in this country stand up and say enough is enough? There's a lot of that coming in. So there we leave it. I don't think this debate has gone away just yet. This texter says non-binary doesn't exist in my view. Stop denying science. We can get giving people with all sorts of entitlements when they need treatment and help, not special categories. They are very entitled. Why are they treated so differently? This texter says, and loads more. Ridiculous. Men will have 2 competitions. How is that fair? Thanks for talking about this on the programme. And I could go on, and all saying really and truly that this is a decision that needs to be addressed and reversed, as one texter has put it. We haven't heard the last of it, that's for sure. Sorcha, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Much appreciated.
Take care. That's Sorcha Ní Lachlan there from Countess Advocacy Company. What's your view? Keep them coming on 087 900 4141 by text or